If you're not running the numbers before you buy, you're not investing, you're gambling. Before you book a showing, you need to know what the cash flow looks like, and that number either makes the deal or kills it. Most single-family homes only cash flow around $100 to $200 a month, and if you mess up the math, you're not just making less profit, you could be reaching into your own pocket every single month to cover the mortgage. Now, I've had some clients come to me excited about a new property and say, it's in a great area, it's turnkey, I already scheduled a showing with the realtor. So I ask, what's your projected cash flow look like? And the answer is always something like this. Well, the rent is $1,600 and my mortgage is around $1,400, so that's $200 in profit, right? Wrong. And that's what I call napkin math. It doesn't include property taxes, insurance, vacancy, repairs, or management fees. And when you do include those, guess what? That $200 becomes minus 50 real quick. And when you start using words like, it's about $200, or I think the insurance should be, or the mortgage payment is around $1,200, you've already lost. And that's why I always say, you don't run numbers after the showing, you run them before. Because if your cash flow is thin, and it often is on single family rentals, then the margin for error is razor thin. You either buy a well-performing asset or a monthly liability. So here's what I'm going to call a step-by-step guide to running your numbers. Number one, you want to start with gross monthly income. Rental income, okay, you use conservative comps, not dream rents. And this is what I was talking about, I think in last week's episode, we were talking about how to determine market rents. Extra income, okay, parking, storage, laundry, if it's consistent. For example, you might have rent of $1,500, parking of $50, total monthly income, $1,550. You want to calculate all of your monthly expenses and go just beyond the mortgage. Okay, and the mortgage, use a mortgage calculator, include property price, down payment, interest rate, okay, realistic interest rates, okay, don't just use, and I would say if mortgage rates are good at the time that you're looking, like really, really good, use averages. Because what happens if you make a purchase decision on interest rates that are really, really low, maybe it's just whatever the economy is doing, and then they come back up to historical averages. I mean, you're going to be hanging on to this thing, I assume, if you're a long-term buy and hold, or you're burying it 5, 10, 15, 20 years, multiple cycles. What's going to happen if your 3% interest rate then goes up to your normal average of 5.5? You're dipping into your pocket again and you're going to be stressed. So make sure you're doing your purchasing decisions on average interest rates. Okay, let's talk about property taxes, yet another expense. Look up local records, ask your realtor, see what other properties are going for in that area. This is all public knowledge. Property insurance. Get a quote from your broker and don't guess. Don't use like a rule of thumb, and make sure that it's an actual quote. I know my broker can get me a quote within minutes on the phone. Hopefully you're not buying a property within seconds. You have at least a few hours to be able to determine. Or again, I should be backing up here. You're not putting an offer in because you're doing this math before you even go out, right? So if you see a property, you can call your insurance broker and just say, hey, you know what? There's this property in 123 Anywhere Street. From what I can see in the listing, it's 1,100 square feet. It's got a breaker panel. And from what I see in the pictures, it's got a finished basement. And they're going to give you a pretty good idea based on where you also are within their pricing profile. Okay. If you're choosing to manage the property, not manage the property yourself and using a professional property manager, you've got a management fee that you factor in. Okay, maybe 8 to 10% of rent, which is pretty average, but check the internet, check in your local area of what managers are charging, or maybe you already have a property manager and ask them for a quote ahead of time. Vacancy reserve. I think a lot of people forget about this. You want to have some kind of reserve there just in case to get you through those lean months if you happen to have one tenant move out I don't know, at the end of May, and the new one is not moving in until July 1st. And you're going to hold out, of course, for the really good tenant, but somebody has to pay that rent, or sorry, the mortgage payment. I would say a good rule of thumb, and this is kind of, if you go on the internet, people are saying maybe budget 5% of gross rent. So that's your vacancy reserve. You also want to have a maintenance reserve, maybe another 5% for repairs and upkeep. So that's like 10% of the gross rent. If you're talking about, $1,500 rent, you got to be putting aside $150 for repairs and vacancies. So let's give an example. Say you have a mortgage of $846, property tax of $180, maybe your insurance quote came in at $110. Again, they're going to be giving you an annual amount, obviously divided by 12. Maybe your property manager's fee is $155 and your vacancy at 5% is 78. Another 5% for your maintenance, 78. Total expense is 1447, 1,447. So if you take your 1,550 in income minus 1,447 of expenses, that's $103 a monthly cash flow. Now let's pause for a second. This is a real world example. And it's pretty typical, $103 a month. That's it. That's what a lot of these properties are going to generate, which means, what if you missed one line item? You're break even. And if your insurance is $30 more than you estimated, you're negative. And if your tenant misses one payment, you're behind for the entire year. So this isn't a game. This is about running your rentals like a business with precision. And if you, I think 3 episodes ago, I can't remember what episode it is. Anyways, go back and I do an entire podcast on how to run your rentals like an actual business. I would recommend you doing that as well, because I would say 95% of the investors that I speak to, they don't run their rentals like a business. They run it basically by the seat of their pants, and do that with off of instinct and emotion. And instinct and emotion have no business in business. KPIs, metrics, those types of things. Speaking of metrics, let's talk about that now. Key metrics that you need to know. Optional, but I'd say they're pretty powerful. Your cash on cash return, which is your annual cash flow divided by your cash invested. So for example, let's say that you're getting $1,200 annual cash flow divided by the $50,000 of your cash that you put in is 2.4%. Okay. It's going to be a little bit better in year 2, year 3, year 4, but your cash on cash return, because if you put 50 grand into something else, like a high yield bond or a treasury at the time of this recording, paying, between 5 and 10%, maybe not the right property to buy at 2.4% cash on cash return. Cap rates, which is your net operating income divided by your property value. And this helps compare across market or asset types. Now, I know with smaller properties, single family homes, you don't typically use cap rates, but it's still a good rule of thumb to get into. And then of course, if you're buying multifamily, absolutely the cap rate is your kind of your gold standard. Now you don't need these for every deal, but you should know how to calculate them. And I'm saying it, I said it in the intro, I'm going to say it again. Run the numbers before you book a showing. This is my golden rule. You're busy. Your realtor is busy. If the numbers don't make sense on paper, don't waste time seeing it in person. Do the math first. And if it works, then go see it. And if it doesn't, move on. There's always going to be another deal. Don't try to force a round peg into a square box and make those numbers work. They either work or they don't. Now, final warning, $200 a month isn't a cushion, it's a trap. Okay, let's say your property cash flow is $200 a month. And then your furnace dies, $5,000. You get 1 month of vacancy, $1,500. You have another turnover, $1,000 in repairs and advertising. That's $7,500 wiped out. You just lost 3 years of cash flow. And that's why you need to buy right and budget right from day one. So let's summarize. Running the numbers isn't about spreadsheets. It's about protecting your time, your money, and your sanity. And if you get this part right, everything else in your real estate journey becomes easier. Click the link in the show notes below to grab my free rental property cash flow calculator, or join my First Keys community. We show all of these different exact scenarios. And this is the one we use in our company before any property gets a showing. And if you're tired of napkin math, follow me. I'll teach you how to invest like a pro without the guesswork.